And recording is going. Go ahead.
Right. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for attending today. When Andrew, my name's Todd, and I'm here with Andrew, and we're actually both in the same space, which is why there's only one host, or one of us is appearing in here, but we are both here. When, like about a year ago, when the pandemic really hit hard and our colleges and universities all were forced to go online, I think it's fair to say that there was a great deal of panic and feelings of anxiety, not just in staff, but also in faculty, and pretty much felt campus wide. And the need to be able to address instructional design requests expediently became more important than ever. And it created it's certainly had its ups and downs and fair share of challenges. And I know that the story is different depending on which institution you're working at, but I think we all experience sort of a collective level of anxiety and immediacy in terms of learning how to best support it as instructional designers and e-learning professionals, learning how to support our users in these kind of dire situations. So that is sort of the purpose of our presentation today, is to talk a little bit about our approach to supporting instructional design work and recognizing how that has shifted and changed as a result of the pandemic. So my name is Todd Waters, and I am the instructional designer for Whatcom Community College in Bellingham, Washington.
I'm Andrew Blick, and I am with Western Washington University, also in Bellingham. So to start us off, there we go. Just to give you a quick roadmap of what we are going to be doing today. We're going to go over quickly our session objectives, then we're going to go through some action prompts, and these are guided, structured questions that we asked ourselves to both reflect and then also to look forward, so we can kind of pull lessons learned from the last year, basically, and kind of shift that into productive thinking about how we can continue to support instructional design requests, doing programming, et cetera, moving forward. And one of the things that we really value is having some sort of group interaction and dialogue. So we're going to be doing a small group discussion and then a share out, and then kind of thinking of next steps. So basically, what can you bring back to your institution, and kind of how can you start to think about shifting your practices through what you've learned, and then open it up for any questions and discussions at the end. So session objectives. Participants will be able to share approaches for supporting online teaching and learning in expedient situations, review current practices for supporting teaching and learning in expedient situations, and identify opportunities for transfer of learning and continued instructional support plan development. So again, all of these are focused on looking at what opportunities we can pull from our remote teaching experiences and how we can kind of continue those to develop a more robust and integrated instructional design plan. So just for a little bit of background context, you can understand the institutions that we are coming from. Western Washington University is a public regional university that's in Bellingham. It's primarily a residential undergraduate population. It does have a small online and branch campus presence throughout Pacific Northwest, or specifically Northwest Washington. And again, we have about 15,000 students. Traditionally, we've done a few faculty development workshops per year specifically on online and blended instruction, and then a handful of webinars and other professional development series. So we haven't really had a kind of defined effort for supporting faculty online, simply because there hasn't been too much interest. And the other piece that's important to realize is that for Western, we have our support spread across a number of different units, including our outreach and continuing ed unit, and our academic technology unit. So our instructional design staff are not all under one part of the organization.
And I work at Whatcom Community College, like I said, and also located in Bellingham. And if anyone in here works at a community college, you know that context can feel different and operate differently than a traditional four-year university. So there are going to be some differences between what Andrew shared and then what I have to share, and that's part of the beauty of this, is we'll be able to talk about how this applies to various contexts. So Whatcom Community College has about 4,000 students FTE. In terms of e-learning departments, I'm the only instructional designer, and then we also have a LMS admin, and we use Canvas at both Whatcom and Western. And in terms of online course development and support, when I started working, it was kind of just like whoever would like the assistance and the help and the guidance could certainly come to me. Put on a couple of workshops every quarter to help with course design and effective teaching and learning in an online context. But similar to what Andrew shared, those were sort of hit or miss in terms of the amount of those who attended. And so Whatcom's online presence is, I'd say, commensurate with the amount of students and the types of programs that are offered. We have one fully online program, and then just a various scattered amount of online classes. This is pre-pandemic, of course. So something that we have been thinking a lot about is what are some questions or some prompts that we could ask ourselves as instructional designers and e-learning professionals, and to ask others to help start thinking about the ways in which we can approach expedient instructional design support for our campuses and to support our users. So one of the questions that we thought of right off the bat was, what is the greatest challenge that you faced at the onset of the pandemic? And the reason that we are asking this question in particular is because I know that for me, when I answer this question, it really illuminates some blind spots. The blind spots, of course, being areas that could have been more attended to prior to pandemic, that maybe I would never have known existed if not for a situation like this to arise. So this is one of the more interesting pieces to kind of think about. So I know that for me, if I answer this question, the greatest challenge for me, and this is probably echoed in other institutions around the world, was marshaling communication and figuring out how to effectively communicate with our faculty and staff about best practices for online teaching and learning during a time of incredible information overload. So that for me was the first. There were many hurdles. That was the first one, is trying to figure out how that communication plan would work and how to be effective in that communication.
So for Western, some of the things that we immediately were faced with, similar to what Todd mentioned, is just kind of how do we get faculty up to speed with being able to teach online and kind of engaged in, or at least have the opportunity to be able to engage effectively with changes to their teaching practice. So institutionally, we had a charge to deliver training to any faculty member that wanted it. And as I mentioned before, we are primarily a resident undergraduate campus, so we don't have a very large presence of programs and faculty that are continuously engaged in online teaching and learning. So it's just a small handful of faculty. So part of this was to try to develop programming that could respond to a variety of different needs. Another thing that was interesting is that our administration and our faculty really wanted a presence to push synchronous online teaching and learning. So a lot of the workshops that we offered were how to engage students synchronously, what are best practices for delivering synchronous teaching and learning. So that was something that while a lot of institutions were looking at more asynchronous options, Western really wanted to continue with synchronous, and there's some pros and cons to that, especially when it comes to faculty managing those classes, so classroom management, et cetera. The other thing that we did was just trying to increase the number of consultations and the opportunities for consultations. So that's something that we would continue, we continued working on. And then for collaboration, just how can we collaborate across different units and teams to engage and offer a more robust set of programs. So that's something that we were also kind of engaged with as we went through this process. Okay, so moving on to our next question. So what did your institution do in support of online teaching and learning as a response to COVID-19? So again, this question really focuses on kind of the strengths of what you did. So what programming opportunities came from the transition to remote teaching and learning, and kind of how your institution can continue to support online teaching and learning So again, thinking of just different ways of integrating kind of what you did for the change to remote teaching into more of your standard practice. So for us, it really led to a streamlined professional development plan. So as I mentioned before, we had numerous units that were historically giving professional development independently. So what we did is we centered all of our professional development that's related to instructional design. And now we operate more on a seamless communication plan. So we have all of our professional development opportunities listed together that are clustered around different topics of interest. So faculty have one place to go rather than kind of looking out for a whole bunch of different opportunities and trying to pick through various emails from different people throughout the year. So that was something that we really tried to put an emphasis on. And also thinking about what new initiatives and programming opportunities we had as a result of this, because now we have this kind of a broader instructional design team that's represented through a couple different units. So how can we now position that team to be more responsive and better about just kind of responding to the different faculty needs, and especially as new needs emerge, kind of, again, just how can we best position ourselves to be able to address those needs.
And at Whatcom in the community college, we were really quick to identify the fact that me and our LMS admin were just simply not going to cut it in terms of the sheer need for support. So the leadership actually came up with something that has been a lifesaver for me, and has put together a team at first during the last spring, right after we were all remote, a team of 12 faculty members who received release time or a stipend, depending on their faculty status, to take on some of this online teaching and learning work. So they were a team led by me, the instructional designer. And what we did is we sort of divided and conquered, so that if there were instructors within their discipline that had specific questions, they had a online course development expert that they could ask for guidance from. And then that information would then come out in large meetings between me and that faculty team. And then in subsequent quarters, it's now down to four faculty members who are part of this team along with me. And we collaborate and we coordinate, and we have put on a series of trainings ranging from just sort of the bare basics of how to create a basic course in Canvas to more advanced topics like engaging students, assessment design, course mapping, and creating effective and engaging course content and video lectures. So we have kind of run the whole spectrum of training topics, and it's actually, little silver lining of pandemic, I guess, is that it's given me and this team an opportunity to really create a plethora of resources that can be used way even after pandemic is over, that those resources can kind of live forever and we can utilize those well. Another piece that we were able to, that I was able to put together was a comprehensive online training using Canvas, our LMS, for the entire institution. So I was able to pick and choose some of the most important pieces of developing effective online courses and online pedagogy and teaching and learning, and really finesse that information into a comprehensive training that fits for our institution. So giving people as many different opportunities for finding resources that will help them be successful in their work has sort of been what was sort of the focus of what my institution did to support online teaching and learning. So our third prompt is, how do you continue to manage and prioritize communication from and opportunities for faculty? Right before pandemic hit, we received a grant and we opened up our first ever teaching and learning center. And then, and I'm not kidding, like 2 weeks after it opened is when we went into pandemic. So it really became sort of a test of how well are we going to be able to use this teaching and learning center to engage with folks and support people in this new sort of world that we're living in. And so what we decided we would do is use that teaching and learning center as a method of organizing and disseminating information. So when it came to mass communications, we began by sending out in emails every week with different themes. It could be around course design, could be around assessment, could be around just general tips for well-being in this online teaching and learning environment. And we sort of funneled in a couple of other departments so that everything would come out in one big sort of newsletter. So we sort of absorbed some of the communication from assessment and institutional research, a little bit from our accessibility office, some from IT, so that we could really deliver as much information as we could through that one email, rather than that, like what I mentioned earlier, that information overload tendency that everyone feels like they have something important to say, and they do, but that was a way for us to really funnel things through and have them be shared in one fell swoop.
So as I mentioned before, we completely revamped our entire professional development plan. So one of the things that we did, similar to what Todd mentioned, is we incorporated faculty. And this was something that we started doing at the beginning of winter quarter. And it was sort of we realized later was more of a missed opportunity when things first kind of started to happen, back in summer, because our summer professional development plan, we had faculty give presentations, but we didn't necessarily have them engaged fully. So one of the things that came out of that is we got a lot of feedback from faculty that they would like to see what other faculty are doing and talk to other faculty, in addition to talking to members of the instructional design and educational technology team. So we brought on some faculty mentors. Again, we've done more of an integrated professional development plan, and that includes faculty mentors that are co-leading workshops. So this last winter, for example, we had a project-based workshop with different themes that were centered around we had one that was on student engagement, one that was on equity and inclusion, a theme that was related to OER. And we picked faculty that had been engaged in these efforts and in this work to be mentors and to actually help facilitate those sessions. So they were doing breakout rooms with their colleagues from across campus. And that ended up being very powerful and meaningful for everyone involved, because the mentors were kind of establishing their work and their roles as experts in this area, and people that could be seen as resources, whereas the participants were able to see really concrete, good faculty examples. And they were, of course, all the faculty who wanted to participate as mentors were vetted, and we had a little mini application process to make sure that they were the ones that would best fit these roles. And then the other piece that this did is it gives us tons of new opportunities for faculty input. So we redid our communication plan again. And part of that is also looking at our surveys and the information that we collect from faculty after workshops are done and how we use that information. So we've been more positioned to be, I guess, better responders to that information and come up with new planning and training programs that are directly related to the needs of the faculty. So moving to our fourth and final questions, this is very much a future-oriented question. How do you think the future of your instructional design work and support will change as a result of this Expedient situation? So again, kind of thinking of, you have all these lessons learned and strategies that have come up. So what are you going to continue with and kind of bring forth as you move from beyond remote teaching and COVID and whatnot? And then also, what are you going to do to modify your instructional design support to continue to move into this direction? So again, one thing that we did, I think, a good job of was we integrated internally within our different units. One thing that we didn't do a good job of, I think, is we didn't look to external partners that much. We didn't get a good representation about what other institutions were doing, because we were just so focused on kind of, let's get something done as quickly as possible. We had some informal conversations, but really one of the things that I think we missed out on there is really understanding what other institutions were doing to potentially learn from and streamline our processes. And again, part of that was just because of how quickly we had to develop and get stuff ready. And I think that's probably common amongst most institutions. But that interinstitutional collaboration effort is something that we definitely could have continued to learn from. And then, I think also to create new collaborative spaces and initiatives. So looking at physical spaces when we return to campus, that's going to be something that we're going to evaluate. So is there an opportunity to have some more of a centralized physical space for teaching and learning, in addition to kind of the centralized virtual space that we've been giving people for all of these different programs and offerings. So that's something that we're going to try to match our physical space to the virtual spaces that we've been creating. And then now we really want to continue our work of directly including faculty into the development stages of new programming and new offerings. So that's something that we've been playing around with a little bit, and I think we have a decent model. So it's something we're just going to be continuing with over this next year. We're building that into all of our funding proposals and whatnot as we move forward.
And at Whatcom Community College, I can echo a lot of what Andrew just shared. One of the things that I noticed pretty quickly was that we weren't super good at, so Whatcom Community College is one of many community and technical colleges in Washington, and we all reside under the state board. So I know that's sort of reflected in other states as well, models similar to that. And it struck me immediately how little communication that there was between the different community and technical colleges in terms of, hey, what's working for you? Do you have any resources? That type of thing that just wasn't that common. And so I'm hopeful that in the future that is something that becomes a little bit more apparent, that common interinstitutional collaboration, because after a few months of the pandemic, that's when those started happening. And maybe that's how it needed to be, given the emergency nature of the situation. Everyone just needed to kind of fend for themselves. And one of the great things that I think has come as a result of this has really been the way in which I've seen faculty in various departments collaborating with each other, not just on, hey, how do you do this feature or this little thing in Canvas or using this technology, but actually sharing a lot of teaching ideas, teaching and learning ideas and strategies. And I've seen more collaboration since pandemic than I ever had prior. And I think sometimes, because I'm faculty too, is sometimes what happens as faculty is it's easy to feel like siloed, like it's you and your students, and that's sort of your job. And you have your colleagues that you attend meetings with and you're on committees with and whatnot, but it's really just you and your students when you're doing that teaching work. And I think that one of the awesome things that's come from this, I've at least noticed this at Whatcom, is that it's my students and it's me and my colleagues, rather than it being really just individualized. And so we have like math faculty learning about some great work from English faculty, or we have some of our engineering faculty getting some great ideas about practical work from our art faculty, and sort of recognizing the interdisciplinary nature of teaching, and that there are effective ways to teach well regardless of your discipline, and that you can learn a lot from your colleagues. And so that's been one of the beautiful things that has really come out of this, and I'm hopeful that continues. So now we want to give you all an opportunity to answer those questions that we just went through for you. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to send you all a link to a Google Doc that we would like everybody to please access. We just dropped it into the chat there for you. And what we want you all to do is we're going to give you about 18 minutes, maybe a little less. I'm thinking, looking at the clock there, maybe 15 minutes to go through and as a team answer these questions and address these questions that we just went through for you. So what we'd like you to please do is identify a group speaker who will be responsible for reporting out, and just briefly and succinctly, sort of an overarching, what was your discussion about? What were some key themes and ideas that came out as a result of that? And once you come back into the room, please, with the group speaker, please raise their hand in Zoom, and that way we know who's up to speak. And then also identify a scribe that will document these experiences in that Google Doc. And again, you don't have to write down every single thing that's being shared, but just some general themes and some ideas. And then just some typical rules of engagement for this breakout activity is to keep your discussion succinct and to the point, and respect the share out time from folks in the other groups.
Hey,
it looks like as soon as we announced that, we lost a fair number of people. So we're down to 5. So I'm wondering if we should just keep it, and we can mute, so that way the 5 of you can just discuss, and that way then we don't have to jump back and forth between a breakout session for one group. So if that works, or I guess the 4 of you now, does that work? All right, awesome. So we will mute and kind of turn it over to you all, and we will just kind of keep this going, if that works.
So is anybody there?
So I kind of feel like we should just get rid of the screen share and just have a sitting around the cafeteria, sitting around in the I don't know, in the dining hall or whatever we call them at conferences. It's been long enough, I don't remember. And just have that conversation face to face. Or as face to face as people are willing to get with strangers on Zoom.
Yeah, and we can definitely keep chiming in too if that's a value, but we definitely want to hear what you all are doing at your institutions. But yeah, I think with the small number, that makes sense that we can kind of just keep it small and informal. So
okay, smaller as we go too.
The ever shrinking group.
I think I scared. I didn't see who it was, but I think I scared her off. Oh, greatest challenge. Should we start there? Just go through them in order?
Yeah, we can run maybe round robin.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll start with the greatest challenge and just I think it was convincing college leadership about how many resources we were going to need to move 115 faculty who'd never taught on Canvas before to fully remote. And maybe that wasn't the biggest challenge, but it was the most frustrating.
What size institution are you at?
So I'm at a fairly good sized community college. I'm at Highline College, just south of Seattle.
Okay.
So we're what, 6,000-ish FTE, 15,000 head count.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. And
You know, it felt like a time to like shut up and trust your e-learning people. They say they need 12 people. Just give them 12 people.
So am I the only other person in the group? This is Anne. Is that a yes?
Go ahead.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. I am not sure what the biggest challenge was. I mean, there were just so many, but for me as a language instructor, I had a lot of just concern around the integrity of the work the students were doing. And, you know, and my classes are really like open and the students are wonderful, but I just didn't know if moving from face-to-face to online, you know, would they be using Google Translate when they did their quizzes? And I tried the Respondus browser, you know, lockdown thing, and it was so unfriendly to the students. It was just, I couldn't do it to them. So I went with trusting them instead. And that felt like the right call, 100%. But, you know, now that I actually have changed careers, I'm in an instructional design role now, and, you know, we're rolling around that question still.
Yeah, I think that's definitely reflected. I can see Mark nodding his head. I am too, but you can't see me. But I think that's definitely relatable. And I know too that in my work with some faculty, that concern has come up multiple times in particular with language, right? Because you do kind of wonder, with all of the tools available, how are we able to really effectively assess a student's acquisition of that language if we can't always easily monitor, you know, how they're doing it. And I think that's definitely one of the big challenges right now for some folks.
It strikes me the whole I forget who said earlier in the meeting about, you know, things that were issues before the pandemic that the pandemic kind of laid bare. That whole question of how do you approach academic integrity was one that we had never really had a substantial conversation about on our campus. And it just got, dialed up to 11 by remote teaching.
Yeah, we went through something similar with proctoring specifically, and kind of looking at what options we have. And we happen to have a contract with HonorLock for our math placement test that was very quickly shifted to a institutional wide license for all testing. And then, we had to build out procedures to put into place to make sure that students weren't being asked for a single course to do, and there had some faculty that wanted to do multiple quizzes per week. So, doesn't make sense that they take 20 proctored quizzes across one course. And, obviously the answer is no. So, also working with faculty on the design of their information and on their assessments. So it's not, just so it's a little bit more scaled to a more appropriate level for the students. And, so that's something that we had to manage too. And then also the kind of the pushback from both students and faculty about the products, about security and information, that's being delivered to HonorLock. And that was another something that was is unexpected. And then when it happened, though, it kind of created another challenge that we had to quickly figure out how to deal with and come up with responses for, just because it was such a it was an important issue that was brought up that most people just hadn't considered because we hadn't used it in that capacity before. So does anyone else want to share out about the first question? Oh, and thank you for someone who's taking notes in here.
Yes, thank you.
I thought we can move on to, maybe what we'll do is copy and paste out the questions that we're talking about into the chat, just so we have. Oh yeah, definitely not $5 a pop. So looking at question 2, so does anyone want to share out about what your institution did in support? So kind of anything else in addition to what you've already shared out?
Sure. I would like to jump in here. This is Rana Sahib here from Lahore, Pakistan. So at our institution, we actually introduced what we call a digital health index system. With this system, we worked across 18 schools and around, you can say, 60 or 70 different programs. With each program, we had a program, a digital health index, program level. Within the index, we basically had certain mandatory items. For example, all faculty had to complete mandatory training. All faculty had to use the LMS in a particular format, the bare minimum standards. And then there was a couple other things. So there were some mandatory items. Then there were some sort of optional items for which, for example, they had to consider developing MOOCs. They had to consider using some advanced features of Zoom or advanced feature of the LMS. And they were given some sort of weightage points for that. And then finally, there was like what we call the intrapreneurship. So we were seeking within the programs, if they had done their own research in terms of adopting some digital tools or software or methodologies to move faster towards digitalization. So across the 3 areas, we called it a scorecard. And then we approached every program and we invited their faculty and we presented this structure to them. And we collected the data. And then we gave them points at the program level. Those got added to the department level. So there was a program health, digitalization health index, then departmental level digitalization health index, because all those program level added up to that. And then they all added up to the school level digitalization health index, which then added all of the schools added towards the university level digitalization health index. So it served as a good leaderboard. This whole thing is not complete. Obviously, some schools were moving faster, some were slow, but we are sort of in the process of accumulating all the data. And then we're going to go back to each of the school, each of the program to share how well they are scoring. And the idea is to keep this system, like every program must have a digitalization health index. So that was the idea basically.
That's really interesting. I like that. It sounds like it's a way to ensure quality at multiple levels within the institution. And that's sounds also very well organized and executed as well. And yeah, that sounds definitely like a really meaningful implementation.
Yes, and it created a sense of leaderboard, amongst the people, and we do plan to then eventually, once we get all the approvals, share this information through our website as well. I will share the link of our generic website, although if anyone is interested in looking at what we have put together, my email address is available in the chat. Feel free to email me there, and I'll be happy to share what we have developed so far.
Thank you. That's awesome. This will be useful to run through and kind of see what you're doing. All right. Do we have anyone else who would like to share out anything about the second question?
I'll second what Todd was saying about the release time for instructors. We had a small team of folks so I'm the director of ed tech. So we had 4 faculty who were seconded to me for 1/3 of their release time, or 1/3 of their teaching load, just throughout the quarter. And what we did for the pandemic response was essentially doubled that release time, and then also paid them a supplemental stipend just to spin up the amount of capacity we had using an existing team.
Mark, have you found that, like when we did that at Whatcom, I thought that was just such a brilliant model, because faculty were then able to see themselves in this person who was also faculty, but was also doing this online teaching support. And I have found that it has really been a great way to build community, and that people have really taken very strongly to that. Was that model really well received by your faculty as well?
Yeah, definitely. And it's been around. We've actually been doing it for about 15 years, but just, we haven't had quite the profile that we did in the last year. So it definitely builds those ties. It gives the folks who are showing others how to do it, kind of the real world experience that they can share with their colleagues. It really does build kind of a tight vibe. And it also, you actually learn things about, why is this person struggling so much? You find out other, contextual stuff that's really helpful to unpacking, unpacking what's going on, whether it's department politics or something historical with that person in technology that you probably wouldn't have otherwise found if you didn't have somebody who, works 2 doors down from them on your team.
Right. Yep. Okay, so we'll go ahead and share our third question here in the chat. How do you continue to manage and prioritize communication from and opportunities for faculty? Curious to hear what some of you all do in your work that addresses this question.
So if I could chime in again, basically we created what we call the tech change agents. And in the tech change agents, we again, when we were working with each of the programs, we asked them to nominate at least two faculty members on an annual rotating basis. Because we are a small team and we could not naturally take care of all of the programs and their needs, their unique needs. So what we did was we worked with those tech change agents and we trained them to a pretty good point. And we asked them to then provide training and support to their own program and come back to us for level 2 support. So we were, I would say, 40% successful, because in some cases, the tech change agents in the programs really took the ownership and learned whatever from us. For example, we wanted them to ensure all faculty are using the LMS with the bare minimum standards. So they literally went about, met with every single faculty in their program, permanent and visiting, and ensured the full compliance. Whereas in some other programs, we didn't have, or the TCS did not have enough motivation because there were not additional incentives like additional stipends or things like that. Although we did recognize the TCAs, appreciated them, perhaps we could have done more things, but since we didn't get the budget approval, so stipends weren't there. But by having the tech change agents in the programs to work as our communication source, because not only it was a one-way process, it was a two-way process. So we told them about the new features, requirements, expectations, and they also told us about the program by program level frustration and issues specific to the programs, which we could cater to and discuss. So it was a very effective communication system, and we are planning to continue with that and go after the non-effective TCAs to convince them, motivate them, or replace them, whatever it takes.
Interesting. All right, let's see. Does anyone else want to share out for that question?
Oh, sure, I'll share briefly. So I'm at University of Western States, and I've been there about 5 months, so not a terribly long time. But from what I understand, just prior to my arrival, we started using a service hub ticketing system, and that was helping the Center for Teaching and Learning kind of triage faculty needs and share and have everybody be able to see tickets together, so you can get an idea of what the trends are and who needs help with what, things like that. So that's been really great. And then we have a pretty cohesive team and great leadership here. So we have a care series that we, all the instructional designers and educational technologists, we come up with topics based on things that we're hearing from faculty and devise presentations, one or more per term, and reach out via email about that.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, I like that, and I think that's such a crucial thing to do, and that we can really do effectively right now. If you do support faculty in this way, to just ask them directly, what are some things that you would like additional training on, and then providing that. I mean, it's a great opportunity to do that right now, because I think in the same way that a lot of us have become privy to our own blind spots as a result of the pandemic, I think that that's probably the same could be true about from a faculty perspective of where am I undertrained, or where do I have opportunities for improvement, and then asking them about that.
All right.
So in our last 5 minutes, we'd like to ask you all this final question of how do you think the future of your instructional design work and support will change as a result of the pandemic and this situation, this Expedient situation? What are some things that you think have forever altered as a result of that?
Well, In terms of the future, I have some wish lists that ideally, the instructional designers are, I think, not very well understood and appreciated by faculty. But through the pandemic, I think people got to really develop better appreciation for us. And I think they also realize how under-resourced we are. I hope that the administrations in the world will consider bolstering the instructional design departments. And secondly, the instructional designers across the globe, I think, should really come together because we are short-staffed and less resources, and do more of sharing. So these events like this conference is absolutely timely and wonderful. Kudos to all those people who participated for us to work together more. And finally, I think that faculty, we have sort of provided the basic emergency level support up until now, but I think now faculty expectations have increased and they really expect from instructional designers some high level value added, instead of just providing the band-aid solutions and to use this tool and that tool. I think now they want some serious work done by us, and that number will increase, but without the staffing increasing, that could create a bottleneck and some issues down the road.
Yeah, I could not agree more with all of your points. Those are fantastic, and I think they're probably echoed by, I would assume, instructional designers and educational technologists in any sector, pretty much anywhere, that this is just, it's very much shifted the perception of our work and the needs of what it is that we do in support of online teaching and learning or any teaching and learning projects. So yes, I completely agree with everything you just said. So in our last, I guess, minute, does anyone else have anything they would like to share? What we wanted to do initially was come back and then kind of run through any key takeaways. But since we're such a small group now, we've kind of been doing that. So is there anything anyone else would like to share out? Just kind of last thoughts or any specific ideas that you want to bring back to your institution or any questions?
Very quickly, if I can add, we have developed a arts and science of teaching and learning in higher education course. I would love for some people in the group to provide us feedback on that one. We could give access to that course to a few people who might be interested. Likewise, we also developed a digital academic skills course for all of the students, and we'd love to get some feedback on that. And finally, we have also developed with some collaboration with Ed Design Lab company out of USA, 8 skills badges for students. So these are all online, sort of fully online courses, and we'd love to get some feedback and input from other colleagues on that as well, because we are doing this work sort of within our own country, looking at the best practices, but we'd love to get some fresh pair of eyes from the outside, tell us if we are on the right track or not.
So I wonder, and this is maybe something that the moderator, I don't know if you can answer this, is there a listserv for this group that people like that have projects or whatnot they want feedback on can bounce things off? Because I know it's kind of a new combination of former professional groups. So
if there could be a listserv, I think for the people participating in this conference, that would be I think, absolutely amazing, one of the amazing outcome of this conference, I think.
We have the Discord that everyone is on right now that's similar to Slack. People have been posting messages and replying on there. That's what I would probably consider doing right now. Let me see if I have a link to that.
Thanks. Yeah, that just seems like that would be the best way to kind of get that out to.
Yeah, because a lot of people are actually are actually on that Discord right now. So it's been
Oh.
pretty good for everyone.
Oh, okay.
Here's the
I'll
link
check it
to
out.
It's you can access it on a web browser or an application. There's several different channels on there right now. So like we have a need help one that might be a good one to use. There's a general one, kind of off topics, and just it has questions throughout the day.
So we want to
Wonderful.
thank
I'll
everybody
definitely check
for
in.
being here today, and for listening to us and for your contributions. We hope that through us sharing with you some of our answers to these prompts and given the different contexts that we work in, that you were able to reflect a little bit on your work at your institution, and keep asking yourself those questions and how we can improve. And it kind of sounds like the general consensus in the chat and through conversation has been that one of the great things that has come from this has been the desire to collaborate more. So I think we should definitely keep that up. So thank you everybody very much for coming here today.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.